We eventually met up with some fellow Irish guardsmen from another company who were providing first aid to some Serb soldiers who had been shot up by the KLA whilst looting. One of these was clearly dead, and a quarter of his skull was missing on the right-hand side. The bullet had left a hole that I imagined could have easily been caused by a large axe, and this was completely different from the previous head wound that I'd witnessed some years earlier in training. Regardless, he was dead, and we had to take the body to the morgue at the hospital. We wrapped this soldier in a poncho, and Soldier B and I launched him into the crew compartment in the back of the Warrior. However, we threw him with such force that he cracked his head on the corner of our boiling vessel. This made a dull thump kind of sound, where everyone goes, "Ooh," then rubs their own head acknowledging the pain. Soldier B then persisted to ask if the corpse was okay. As skull, blood and brain matter dripped from the poncho. As I drove to the morgue, I began to joke about the dead Serbian in the back of our vehicle. I was still the class clown, and insisted that he was moving, and that I could hear him screaming for help. I continued the prank and told the lads in the turret that he was clawing at their feet, and to my amazement, they were buying it. By the time that we arrived at the morgue, both Soldier B and Wade were practically sat on top of the turret out of fear of a zombie attack. Then, to our amazement, shock and horror, when we opened the back door of the Warrior, this perceived zombie corpse was sat up slightly. Soldier B apologised again for cracking his head off the corner of the boiling vessel, as I fixed my bayonet to make sure that he was actually dead. Now even I believed in zombies. Talk about a joke backfiring. I didn't know whether it was the vibrations from the Warrior that made this zombie sit up, or if we'd gone over a bump, or maybe it was just gas within the corpse. But this was the last time I joked about the dead. The access to the morgue was at the gable end of the building through what appeared to be a fire door. There were plenty of black stretchers at this entrance, so we were at the right place. I promptly grabbed one, and Soldier B assisted as we loaded up our zombie friend. Then Soldier B asked why these stretchers were not white, and then the realization hit us both at the same time as we reluctantly advanced towards the corridor to the morgue. These stretchers were white, but had been stained with so much dead blood that they were now black. Our high morale from our proud, good-spirited morning was about to change to desolation, and all our lives would be forever changed as we entered this tomb of death. Pristina had been without power for some time, so the first thing that hit us as we approached was the ungodly smell. We could actually taste the death, chew on it. In fact, from a good distance away. The rotten smell of decomposing human flesh consumed us. Even now, writing these words, I can taste, smell, and feel the morgue. A smell so bad that it makes your skin itch, even crawl. The temperatures were well over 30 degrees Celsius that summer, and both sides of the corridors were lined from the floor to the ceiling with mainly women and young children. This left a narrow walkway only a few feet wide, so I kept my head down and tried my hardest not to look to my left and right, but I just couldn't help myself. These people had not died from natural causes. They'd been beaten, mutilated, raped, tortured and murdered. Some were missing limbs, whereas others were burnt, or just too badly decomposed to observe their wounds to determine how they actually died. I was gagging on the smell and my eyes were watering, and I just wanted to run out of there and scream. But we still needed a place to dump this corpse. Eventually we found a widening where some doors were, and we sat down our zombie Serb. Then, almost like a moth to a flame, In my direct eyesight, there was a 10-year-old boy decomposing right in front of me. His chest cavity was non-existent, black, and was full of maggots eating away at him. I could only imagine what had inflicted such a wound. A shotgun up close, a burst from a heavy machine gun, or just maybe he had been there that long that the maggots had just eaten away at him. I had a younger brother back home around the same age, and all I could think about was that if he'd been unfortunate enough to be born in Pristina, then this could well have been his fate. Soldier B recalls becoming overwhelmed by witnessing so much death and began to lean on a shelf for support, only to find that this was not a shelf, but in fact a set of mutilated feet. I don't recall leaving the morgue that day or how we returned to the rest of the platoon, and I never wrote about this in my war journal. I didn't need to, as it has stayed with me and haunted me every day since.